Good afternoon. I'm John Falchicchio, Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, and I want to welcome you to DMPED Weekly Check-In on Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. We're excited for a really big agenda today. We have a couple of different items to talk about. We will talk about our Streetery Winter Ready grant program, as well as an update about all of the regulatory and other updates from the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture. But before we get to that, we're actually going to stick with a DMPED update, which is the Small Business Resiliency Grants. The Small Business Resiliency Grants are going to be administered by our DMPED Business Development Unit, and we have with us today Sabanglay Cook, who's going to kick us off and tell us a little bit more about this new grant program. Sabanglay?
Thank you so much, Deputy Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabanglay Cook. I'm the Director of Business Development here in the Deputy Mayor's office, and always excited to be before you as we constantly continue to think about how we support our local businesses in terms of supporting them from a revenue generating opportunity, marketing standpoint, and a variety of other things that we're trying to tackle. And so today, like the Deputy Mayor mentioned, we are launching this afternoon our Resiliency Fund. And this is something that has been crafted and designed in coordination with our Director of Great Streets and Retail, Ms. Stephanie Thomas. And so what I'd like to do is just go ahead and pass it to her and ask her one of the first questions that I'm sure everyone is curious about. What is the Resiliency Fund? And so, Stephanie, could you kick us off from there?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It is a distinct pleasure to be with you here today and to share about our Small Business Resiliency Fund. Deputy Mayor, Director Cook, when we talk about COVID-19 and the pandemic and the public health emergency and the impact that it's had on our community, we hear words like unprecedented and unparalleled and devastating and painful and, to be quite frank, traumatic, right? But each of those words they capture the experience, but they don't really give it the full weight of what it means for our businesses. And our businesses are at a place right now where they need to determine how they are going to continue to operate. How will they pivot? How will they make the next step? If I cheat a little bit here, I heard a remark recently where someone said, we are looking to make our businesses move from fragile to agile. So with that framing, let's talk a little bit about the Small Business Resiliency Fund, which opens today and actually opened at 4 o'clock. So let's get started. So the Resiliency Fund is a $3 million grant fund for local small businesses aimed at supporting COVID-19 expenses to help businesses continue operations and protect people, assets, and presence. The funds may be used for business model strategy, redesigning and pivoting, business continuity plan development, strengthening of digital retail experiences, including complementary e-commerce platforms and or online shops to bolster brick-and-mortar businesses. It supports COVID-related new marketing efforts and the expense that a lot of our small businesses are taking on to make sure that they protect their employees as well as their customers, the purchase of personal protective equipment and or disinfection products for the business. What does it really mean to be resilient? What it means is to be able to address the external and the internal threats that could cause your business to stop operating at the level that it once functioned. So when we think about that a little bit more, who are we targeting? Who are the businesses that will be most eligible for this particular fund? So let's talk about eligibility. This is really targeted towards district-based brick and mortar businesses. We are looking to award grants up to $10,000, and we are looking for small businesses and independently owned restaurants with 50 employees or less. They are the candidates for this particular fund. There are some additional eligibility criteria that's outlined in the application website at coronavirus.dc.gov. But I want to highlight just, again, the core eligibility. You have to be duly organized under the laws of the District of Columbia, generate less than $3 million in revenue, and 51% of those gross revenues have to be derived from the district government. The other criterion here is around your economic injury. We know that these are tough times. So you have to be able to demonstrate economic injury through the loss of revenue of 25% or more. Also, we want to support our businesses that support our communities by hiring locally. So you must employ at least one district resident, which includes the owner. And for the purposes of this grant, we are also including the count of W-2 or 1099 contractors as acceptable as well for your employee count. A couple other things. You'll need to have attained or have your clean hands from DC Office of Tax and Revenue. You have to be revenue generating for at least 3 months prior to the declaration of the COVID-19 Response Emergency Amendment Act of 2020. Grant funds can only be used for business model restructuring, or what we call pivot support, business continuity plans, related COVID-19 marketing expenses, and again, the purchase of personal protective equipment, PPE, and or disinfection products for the business. Finally, businesses receiving grant funds absolutely must comply with local and federal guidelines for operating their business, social distancing guidelines, disinfection protocols, occupancy restrictions, and so forth. So we always talk on the Great Streets side about how do you get Great Streets ready. Let's talk a little bit about how you become Resiliency Fund ready. So for the application, you'll need the following documents: business license, valid driver's license or state-issued identification or passport. You need your DCRA file number, your certificate of occupancy, your good standing certificate, your clean hand certificate. All of these things should match up with your business name on record. And to help with supporting the economic injury, you will need your 2019 profit and loss statement, and you'll need the first quarter for 2019 and the second quarter for 2019 P&L, and you'll also need the same thing for 2020. So the first quarter being January 1 through March 31st, and April 1 through June 30th. And finally, a current payroll roster that lists all your full-time and part-time employees and the state of residence or domicile. And again, more information can be found on coronavirus.dc.gov. The applications open at 4 p.m. We're excited to have the mayor, the deputy mayor, the funding to be able to support our small businesses. So with that being said, I think when we're answering your question, Director Cook, about what does it mean to be resilient, I love that we have partnered with City First Enterprises, who is a local CDFI, who has been at the forefront of what it means to build resilient communities and resilient businesses. So I'm actually going to pitch the question to you, to our guest, Oswaldo Acosta, the President and Executive Director. Let's talk a little bit about resiliency. What does it mean to be resilient?
Thank you, Stephanie. The concept of resiliency in the small business in the face of this crisis means the ability to not only absorb the shock, the economic and revenue shock that we're facing in our small business communities, but also the capacity to transcend this crisis and transform your business into what will be the post-COVID world. Resiliency, therefore, means resources, the ability to transform the crisis into revenue opportunities, but before it becomes an opportunity, it becomes an expense. Before there is revenue and income, there is a cost. Large companies, Stephanie, as you pointed out earlier in our previous conversations, have access to other resources through different sources of capital. Small business owners and small business companies don't have the luxury to go to the stock market or lobby in Congress for aid. So what we need to do is to level the playing field, not only in DC, but across the nation, to help them access the capital that they need to retrofit their business, to pivot. And pivoting means just adjust to the new reality. And that is, as Stephanie listed them, new infrastructure, physical retrofitting, e-commerce, and many other aspects of the new reality. So that is resilience in a nutshell.
Great. Well, I want to thank DMPED, and I want to thank Oswaldo and City First Enterprises for bringing us the Small Business Resiliency Fund. As we mentioned, the application is now open, and we're going to come back later in the Q&A to make sure that we answer any questions that you have. But before we get to that, we have a really exciting presentation from the Mayor's Office of Nightlife and Culture, which is going to present about the Winter Ready Streetery grants, but just more so in general, getting your business ready for the winter. And we have a number of sister agencies with us today. That's why I say we have a mega lineup. We have 11 participants ready to tell you all that you need to know about getting ready for the winter. And I'm excited to first bring up Sean Townsend to get us rolling. And if Sean and the team that he's assembled can't answer your questions, well, I don't know where we go from there. But if they can't answer your questions, you'll have stumped us and we'll get back to you. But I think they're going to give you some information that really will help you get ready for the winter. And what we like to talk about is resiliency and businesses making their pivots. So with that, I'll bring into the conversation Sean Townsend.
Good afternoon or good evening, everyone. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the intro. Just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And as the Deputy Mayor stated, we have a lot of company with us today, so I'll be very brief. First, I'd like to thank the team at DMPED, also our sister agencies who have been involved in conversations over the last couple of months on how we can provide relief. And all of this could not be done without the leadership of our Mayor Bowser. So just want to thank everyone for their involvement in putting this streetery program together, but also the relief that comes with it. With that being said, we have compiled all of this information as it relates to questions that we have heard from the industry regarding outdoor dining, what you can do, what you can't do, what are the restrictions, and what are the guidelines. So we created an outdoor dining guide that is now posted on the coronavirus.dc.gov/recovery-business. It's there, and it's a complete guide of all of the do's and don'ts of outdoor dining. So I won't keep you long, but the next couple of slides gives you some insight to a matrix that was created for two popular items that businesses will be looking to obtain permits for, and that's tents and propane or portable heaters. So we wanted to make sure that we answer as many questions as we can on the front end by putting this matrix together that's included in the guide. And if you, by chance, have additional questions, there's information in the guide as well that directs you to a point of contact at those agencies to answer your questions. And also, I'd just like to remind folks that there's still an opportunity to apply for the Streetery Winter Ready grant. That's a $6,000 one-time grant that we are distributing to businesses. Just a quick update, we've now taken a little over 600 applications in, and at least half of those businesses that have applied have received conditional award letters from us. Once the business responds to the conditional award letter with a budget of what they intend on spending the funding on, then they will receive a grant agreement and funds will be dispersed at that time. So we look forward to dispersing funds by the end of this week to the first round of grant recipients. So with that, I will pass it over to Matthew Marcoux, who is the Associate Director at DDOT, with more information about our streamlined process to obtain a portable heater or tent permit. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Townsend. I really appreciate the opportunity to discuss this important program to assist small businesses in the District of Columbia with weathering the current conditions through a special permitting system that we've put together in partnership, obviously, with you, as well as with sister agencies who are also on the call, Fire EMS, DCRA, and DC Health, primarily. So you should be seeing the title page. Why don't we go to the first page, when is a permit required?
And we're set.
So a permit is required whenever you are installing a tent and or deploying a portable heater outdoors. This is true whether the tent or heater will be on public space or on private property. That could include open courtyards, the rears of properties, and rooftops. And a permit is required even if you already have a tent or a heater. The permit is required even if you have a permit for outdoor food service in public space. So it's a matter of collecting the information and making sure that we have tents that are properly operating and portable heaters that are safe for use. So let's go to the next slide. Application requirements. So for applications that are only using private property, you'll only need to provide us with your certificate of occupancy. For applications that are using public space, we'll also need the permit that's authorizing food service on public space. That could include your sidewalk cafe permit or your current certificate of use for a sidewalk cafe, a temporary sidewalk table service permit, a parklet permit that you've obtained during this period in order to provide service in the curb lane in front of your business, or if you are participating in a streetery permit that was obtained by a BID or another community organization, you'll need to provide that streetery permit. We'll also need a letter from the community organization that got the permit supporting your application. In addition to the proof of the business, we'll also need the site plan. Site plans should be to scale. They can be hand-drawn on graph paper. That's we've actually received several applications like that through the course of this period, and they are very effective ways of presenting information to scale. It does not need to be an engineer or architect stamped plan, so please make sure that you're using whatever is acceptable for us, which is hand-drawn on graph paper. We need the specifications for the tent and or the portable heater that you're using. Please include the flame retardant certification for the tent fabric. So it's not just the physical layout of the tent and its dimensions and its specifications, but it's also the material that will be used to cover the tent. And good news, there aren't any new insurance requirements for tent or heater permits. We won't be asking for additional proof of insurance. That will have already been assumed in the material that you've already provided for your prior permit. So if we'll go to the next slide, the application submission process. So the applications can be submitted online at tops.d.dc.gov. We've put together a presentation on how to apply, a step-by-step guide, but we wanted to wait until this presentation to hear what questions you had so we could tailor it to your specific questions or additional information that you think is necessary so we can make sure that it fits exactly with what the industry needs. You'll need the information that we talked about, your certificate of occupancy, your permit. You'll also need information such as the address of the business, the site plan and the specifications that we already mentioned. And just a reminder that you already have to have permission to provide food service, whether on private property or on public space. You can combine multiple areas on a single permit. So you can include a sidewalk area, a courtyard area, and a rooftop area, all on a single permit. The permits are separated both by type, so tent or portable electric heater, portable propane heater. In addition, we want you to identify whether the materials will be on private property or public space. If you do have multiple areas, please include a site plan for each area where the items will be placed. And if different tents or heaters are required or requested, please identify where they will be going, as well as providing specifications if you're using different tents or different heaters in the same application. And a reminder that there are no fees for this permit. The next slide, slide number, this is about the application review and approval process. So applications will be reviewed by specific and limited agencies. The heater applications will be reviewed by Fire EMS. Tent applications will be reviewed by DCRA and DC Health. We're working with ABRA. They do want to know generally about what is going on, what businesses are installing in areas, so they will be informed about the applications through the application process. And applications with both fixtures, so heaters and tents, will be reviewed by all 3 agencies. Applications will be responded to within 3 business days. Our goal is to approve all applications within 3 business days, but there will be times occasionally when additional information may be requested. If that happens, you'll receive notice through the application process. You'll receive an email that notifies you about the reviewer's comments, and if you can look at the reviewer's comments and prepare the material necessary to respond to those comments, we'll do what we can to move those forward as quickly as possible after that. So then, once the permit is issued, we'll go to the next slide. So after the permit is issued, please have the permit and the approved site plan on site and available for any inspectors. Fire EMS may come, DC Health and others may come. Sites may be inspected for compliance with the approved plans and the permit conditions. And the permits will be in effect while the mayor's health emergency order is in effect. We will automatically extend them whenever the mayor's order is extended as appropriate through the winter season. So that's something that we've been doing with other permits that we've issued during this period, such as the temporary sidewalk table service permits and the parklet permits. So we will continue, we will add these permit types to that and extend them automatically if the and when the mayor's health emergency order is extended. So the last slide, DDOT delivers. We really appreciate the partnership that we've had with the agencies that we've been working with. And with that, I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Matthew, for the presentation. Appreciate that. I'll now toss it over to Pamela Washington, who is the Enforcement Administrator at DCRA, and I know she's in person on site. Pamela, are you there?
I'm right here. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present information regarding what will be needed for the DCRA permits. Next slide, please. We have 4 requirements for all permits that are being submitted. You'll need your structural, architectural plan details, fire and life safety protection details, electrical provision details, and your structural tie down and anchoring plan details. We don't want any tents falling over during a windstorm. Next slide, please. For your structural architectural plans, your manufacturer drawings can be used, what comes in, what they provide. The plans should show a location detailing the location of the tent in relationship to the street and the business or the property, seating arrangement inside the tent, structural drawings showing details of how the tent will be anchored to the ground to secure during wind events, and structural and manufacturer installation requirements. Next slide, please. This is a sample of the manufacturer's drawings, which you can use with your application. Next slide. Here's a sample location plan showing the seating within inside the tent. So we need to see that as well. Next slide. For the fire and life safety protection details, we should know the hours of operations, the means of egress and interior seating arrangements. We should show the non-interference of the tent with the operation and access of the fire department. If you're setting up next to a building that has a fire hydrant or a fire hookup on the building, it cannot be blocked. We need the certificate of flame resistance, and this is so that you're showing that the tent is inherently non-flammable or treated with a fire retardant that's supposed to be effective for the lifespan of the tent. This generally comes straight from your manufacturer. And if you have fire extinguishers, they should be also detailed on the plan. Next slide, please. And here is a sample of the manufacturer's fire retardant information. Next slide. If you have a lighting inside the tent, all equipment and lighting connections to existing outlets should be shown. And if you are installing additional electrical equipment, then that needs to be listed and shown as well. Next slide. Here's again a sample of the electrical plan inside of the tent. Next slide. Your structural tie downs and anchoring plans must show how the details of how the tent will be anchored to the ground to secure during a wind event, and all signage for fire extinguishers and lit exit signs. And if you show the next slide, here's an example of the tie down and existing tent. So this shows this here. And then here's another that shows the anchoring of the tents with water barrels. Next slide. There's one slide that is missing. At this point in time, if you are applying for a tent permit that has 400 square feet or greater, and that can be one permit or an aggregate of several permits put together, you will have to submit an additional application to DCRA. Let me pull up the exact information here. Please bear with me. I'm sorry about this. You will have to submit your tent permit to DCRA via your user account. The user accounts are set up through Project Docs and Access DC. Once you complete all the required questions and fields, you will get an email that will ask you to submit your project, your plans through Project Docs, and then it will be reviewed. If you have any other questions, you can email DCRA@dc.gov, or you can give us a call at 202-442-4400, and we are here to serve you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Pamela. And now we will have Arian Gibson give us some insight on DC health guidance as it relates to tents outdoor. And Arian serves as the Associate Director at DC Health. Thank you, Arian.
Thank you, Director Townsend, and thank you and you and your team for putting this together. I think this document is going to be really helpful to the restaurants. So you can go to the next slide, please. Yes. So before I get started, I think it's important to make a distinction between what we consider an outdoor structure and an indoor structure. And it's important because once you are in the indoor structure category, and what we consider that is 2 walls or more, it has the potential to interrupt normal airflow. So we want to be careful when we're in the indoor structure category, because we don't want to create an environment where we don't have proper airflow. We want to make sure that everything remains safe. So 2 of our major requirements that we are looking for in the review process are to make sure that the structure is able to maintain proper temperature, which is at least 68 degrees Fahrenheit. And the other one is to make sure that there's proper airflow. And proper airflow in a dining room area in an indoor structure would be 5 times turnover rate per hour. Now, I know that sounds a little complicated, but it's really not. So just relax a little bit. They have exhaust fan devices that you can purchase or that you can consult with your tent provider with, and they will tell you exactly what the airflow turnover rate should be for a certain size and shape of a tent. It is important that you submit those manufacturer specifications so that we can give you a quick and timely review. And those are the 2 major requirements that we have in the tent review. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. And I just want to note before I pass it over to back to the Deputy Mayor that we also have Sarah Fashbaugh, who is the Community Resource Officer at ABRA. And we also have Chief Tony Falwell, of the Fire Marshal's Office with FEMS. So they'll be available to answer any questions as well during the Q&A period. Deputy Mayor?
Great. Thanks, Sean. And thank you for all our participants. That was really helpful information. And I know there will be a couple questions. If you have a question and you're listening on the phone line, you can press 0 now, and that'll allow our screeners to be able to see you and get you involved in the conversation. We also are getting a lot of questions on Facebook, on the Facebook stream, as well as if you are on Twitter, you can use the hashtag DCHope, and we'll try to find those questions as well. So lots of ways to engage on today's conversation. I'm going to jump right in and try to answer some of the questions or get the help of the panelists to answer some of the questions that we've gotten on Facebook so far. And the first one was actually from Aaron, who asked, will you support the Music Venue Relief Act that would help save music venues here in the city? And I'm going to jump in on this one, and I'll ask Director Townsend to help me close it out. But we are looking at that legislation. We're also looking for ways to fund the legislation that the council has already passed. They passed a $100 million program for the support of our hospitality industry, which includes live entertainment venues. So we've been searching and really advocating for the federal funding that we were shortchanged in the CARES Act. As you know, we should have received $1.25 billion. We only received $490, so we'll continue our advocacy on Capitol Hill and trying to pull down the extra $755 million that were shortchanged. But in the meantime, we're looking at any sort of pots of money of local dollars that we might be able to. But Sean, anything specific, or how can people reach out to you if they want to talk about the Music Venue Relief Act?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I couldn't have said it better. And I think that that is the unfortunate dilemma that we are in as a territory and not a state. I'm happy to have the conversation. If you can just email nightlife@dc.gov, and I can follow up regarding the legislation.
And thank you, Director, for that one. We'll continue, just like we are in every other facet of the public health emergency, the federal emergency. We are treated as a state, and so we'll keep advocating for that. On that, actually, Corbett on Facebook asks, what's the status of the state of emergency? The public health emergency runs through this Friday, and before that expires, the mayor will actually sign another mayor's order, which will extend all of the programs that we're outlining today, as well as several other items. So we'll make sure that we get that information out to the public.
I think we have to cook that down.
We'll make sure we get that out to the public, but in the meantime, all the information about phase 2 is on coronavirus.dc.gov. So then we had a question from Zach, who asked, and I'll turn this to Sabangwe, can you please clarify how long has the funding for the Resiliency Fund been earmarked, and if it was since last fiscal year, why have the documentation requirements just now been shared? This seems to put small businesses in a tough position to work quickly. So, Sabangwe?
Yeah, sure. So keep in mind that obviously we are in, this is a very fluid kind of situation. And so the design of the Resiliency Fund was only put together in the last 30 days or so. So we are trying to address these needs as quickly as possible. So the short answer is no, this isn't something that was created in January or anything like that. This is something that we have designed to meet this moment right now. And so we know that there's a sense of urgency and a need to help the businesses. And so that's exactly why we've put this Resiliency Fund out to support as many businesses as we possibly can as they're trying to identify ways to pivot and sustain themselves. And so that is what this moment is for now, and that is what this Resiliency Fund is for at this moment.
And also, we've actually designed this program in consultation with some of our partners on the council.
Correct.
So we actually had talked with Councilmember McDuffie, who's the chair of the Committee on Business and Economic Development, as well as Councilmember Allen, and we actually were able to piece together federal dollars and some local dollars in order to create this $3 million program. So we're excited to launch it today, launch the application today. And just a reminder that you do have until October 15th to get those applications in. The next question, another Facebook question. This one is from Carolina, and I think we may have answered it, but it says that when will the permits be extended in Tops? They all are set to expire this Friday, the 9th. Sean, do you want to take that? And I know Matthew's with us as well.
I'll let Matthew from DDOT answer that question.
Well, thank you. Happy to answer that question. We have literally been in touch with our IT team to update those permit expiration dates to whatever date is established in the mayor's order that was just mentioned a few minutes ago. So as soon as the mayor's order is in effect to extend the health emergency, we will then implement that extension to those permits automatically in Tops, and you should be able to then print them out from your account in Tops and have them updated and on file at your business.
And actually, that Matthew raises a good point. So the public health emergency, it will be extended by mayor's order. That mayor's order will be signed this week, and it will extend the public health emergency for as long as the council has authorized it, which at this point is December 31st. So you can look for that to be extended this week, and we'll be sure to get that information out to the public and make sure our sister agencies know so they can update all the different forms and applications that you alluded to, Matthew. So thank you for that question. We also have another question from Lee about, this one is for, I think, Sabangwe, and she asked, for the small business resiliency grants, are applicants required to be located in a Great Streets corridor?
Hi, Lee. Great to entertain this question, and I think you might even see Stephanie here, our director, shaking her head saying no. So this opportunity here, there are businesses that are in Great Street corridors, and those that are outside the corridor are eligible to apply. But I'll also allow Stephanie if she'd like to add to that very quickly.
No, that's perfectly fine. This is an opportunity open to our district businesses, so inside or outside of a Great Street corridor.
Great. And why don't we go to the phone lines for our first question? And the first question is actually from Davey, who's interested in starting a fitness center. Davey, can you hear us? Davey,
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. Your question?
My question is this Resilience Fund strictly for D.C. residents, or could you be outside, like in Maryland or Virginia, and qualify?
So no, this is for our district-based businesses.
And so can you go through just the district-based businesses? What are the requirements we're looking for to show that they're small and local?
Absolutely. So we'd be looking for a business to be duly organized under the laws of the District of Columbia, that you have a physical presence within the limits and boundaries of the District of Columbia, that you are generating at least 51% of your revenue within DC, and that you have your principal office is also located here in the District of Columbia.
And actually, why don't I stay with Sabangwe and Stephanie with a question, another one from Carolina, who asked for the resiliency grant. If a business opened in March, is it eligible to apply?
So no, it wouldn't be eligible under this opportunity. The eligibility requirements include that the business be revenue generating for at least 3 months prior to the declaration of the emergency.
Great. And let's open a phone line again. And I'm going to try to pronounce this, Nesreen. Nesreen had a question about the location and the links for tents and heaters. Nesreen, are you there?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Fantastic. Your question?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. First, I wanted to thank the mayor and the deputy mayor as well for establishing the Office of Nightlife and Culture. The support that our businesses have gotten has been amazing, and the speed. And my question is, I have gone on to look for the application for the heaters and the tent, but I don't see it, and I'm not sure where I should be going and if it's up and running.
Thank you, Nesreen. Director Townsend?
And that I will punt that to Matthew Marcoux, as we anticipated that would be one of the questions.
And I won't even fair catch that punt. I will catch it on the run and take it to the House. So the short answer is that the applications are live. I'm literally looking in the system at them now. You would find them under construction permits, and these are fixtures under construction permits. And that's one of the reasons why we want to put together the guide, to make sure that you have information and screenshots to take you directly to the application. So that information, I believe, Deputy Mayor Townsend, is included in the guide, is it not?
It's on page 4 of the guide, correct.
Thank you. So that information is included in the guide briefly, and then we're going to give you screenshots, step-by-step guide on how to submit an application.
And just one more time, Director Townsend, where can people find the guide?
So the guide is going to be located at coronavirus.dc.gov/recovery-business.
All right, great. So on the coronavirus website, we'll make sure that we get that updated, and I'll make sure that DMPED tweets out the link, and I know all of our friends at our sister agencies hopefully will do that as well today, so that folks have access to that guide. So our next question, let's take another one from Facebook. Another question was about for the outdoor winter seating streeteries. Can you please explain how non-food, non-restaurant retail can take advantage of outdoor space?
So that's a good question. I know that we do have some non-food retail businesses that have applied. I would encourage those businesses to apply as well, and we will review the application, make a determination if the business is eligible to receive these funds at this time.
Okay, great. And we'll stick with a Facebook question, but if you do have a question, if you're on the phone line, you can press 0 now, and that will get you in the queue to ask a question there. So the other one, we have this one going back to the Resilience Fund. This is from Paul, who asks, are nonprofit organizations eligible for the Small Business Resiliency Fund?
Okay. So, Paul, for this opportunity, this opportunity is not open to nonprofits. This is strictly focused towards our brick and mortar, retail, restaurant businesses, but not a nonprofit at this time.
Okay. And sticking with the resiliency grant, what's the period for which the requirement of the 51% of gross receipts from the District of Columbia is being evaluated?
Sure. So I think it's being evaluated on 2 places, and I'll also ask Oswaldo to join me on this question. First, we need to see that for your 2019 numbers. And secondly, we'd also want to see it for your activities, your revenue generating activities through June 30th, 2020, showing that whatever that you produce 51% of your revenue from the sales of in the district.
Yes, absolutely. 51% of your revenue should be, as she said, coming from the district, and it has to be in the first 2 quarters of 2020. That's the period.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And Oswaldo, any other tips for applicants as they begin to prepare all the documents for this, or as they prepare to apply? What are your other kind of tips for applicants or potential applicants?
That's a pretty good question, Deputy Mayor. I think what I would emphasize is that when you go through the application, which is as user-friendly as possible, be very thorough and review the questions. If you have any doubts or any questions, just read the guidelines that we posted as well in the website as a resource, and do not submit if you're not 100% certain. There is a way for you to reach out to us. We will not consider applications, given the expediency under which we are operating, we will not consider applications that are not fully well prepared.
And Oswaldo, could you also share the email address if people have questions or need some help?
Absolutely. DC Resiliency at cityfirstenterprises.org.
Thank you so much.
All right, fantastic. Another question from social media. This one's from Joe, who asks about clean hands and good standing, and asked if businesses have paid through the summer of this year. Is that recent enough? When's the clean hands and good standing need to be presented?
Sure. So I'll have Oswaldo answer.
Yes, it should have been issued as to March 30th, 2020. As long as it was issued then, it would be okay.
So anytime after March 30th?
Anytime after March 30th.
Okay, so any clean hands certificate after March 30th will be accepted for the purposes of the Small Business Resiliency Fund grant program.
That is correct, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, fantastic. And we have another question on the phone line. So Lauren, I think she might have two questions. Lauren, can you hear us?
Yes. I was just wondering, can you all hear me? Okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I was just wondering if to learn more about the Resiliency Grant and if it can be used for COVID building modifications similar to the Great Streets Grant. And can that be also included in the guidelines for pivoting a business?
Can you, hi Lauren, can you give us a little more information about what you mean when you say building modifications?
Sure. Having to do, interior building modifications to allow separation and physical distance for the services that we provide, architectural changes and things like that.
It is eligible for that. That is an allowable expense, Lauren.
Oh, great. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for that. And then I wanted to go back to another Facebook question about the Director Townsend for the Streetery Winter Ready Grant Program. When does that application close? And if the restaurants are just applying for a permit, can they submit the registration form while they wait for the permit? So I guess the question is, if they are still under review for their outdoor space, can they submit for the Winter Ready Grant Program?
I would, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I would suggest that the business go ahead and apply for the grant, and the approval will be contingent upon being able to provide us with a permit from DDOT.
Okay, fantastic. This is a question. Let's bring maybe Chief Falwell into the conversation, or this might be a question for Pamela at DCRA. It comes from Jay, who asks if heaters are not allowed inside the tent, what's the best way to heat the tent, or how are tents supposed to be heated?
I'm going to initially defer to Chief Falwell, and then I will also defer to my colleague, Chris Bailey, who is virtual. He may also have an answer on that.
Thanks, Pamela.
Sure.
So, thank you, Ms. Washington. Keep in mind, these portable patio heaters have deflector plates on the top. They're designed to deflect heat in a radiant pattern. So what happens is, even if you have a 5-foot clearance from the outside of the tent, your heat should be able to deflect in the tent. Now, if you don't want to use that type of heater, the establishment owner may want to consider getting a commercial grade electric type heater. The only difference is those have to be plugged directly into outlets, and some of those run off 120 volt outlets, not your standard receptacles. You would have to have those receptacles installed. But these lamps heat pretty good, and they throw a high radiant pattern of heat, even if they're on the outside of the tent areas.
This is Christopher Bailey. I would just like to add that the placement of the heater in your diagram will also show us where you would like to put these heaters around your tent in order to provide the coverage that you're looking for. And with the tents being open, that should give you enough to position your seating arrangement in such a way that you can accommodate everyone safely.
Thank you for that. And next question, again from social media, regarding this is from Nathaniel, who asked about the Resiliency Fund, and panelists gave different answers, he believes, about the evaluation of the period for the 51% of revenue within DC. So he was just looking for clarification. Is it 2019 or is it the first 2 quarters of 2020? So can we just get clarification on that?
It is both. For 2019, you have to be able to see that you've generated 51% of your revenue from in the district, and the same thing for 2020 for the first quarters, January 1 through March 31st, as well as April 1st through June 30th.
Okay. And another question about the Resiliency Grant. For-profit center-based childcare businesses are sometimes considered retail and sometimes not. Are they eligible for the, well, this asks about the Great Streets and the robust retail because they're consumer-facing small businesses. Are they eligible for this opportunity?
Deputy Mayor, what type of business did you say again?
So it is a for-profit center-based childcare business.
Yes. So for this opportunity, childcare centers are excluded. We recently had a childcare funding opportunity to support that business in the industry, and for this opportunity, they are not an eligible type.
Okay. And going back to Director Townsend, if you want to direct this question, it's from Salwa, who wanted to know, do you need a permit if you're getting tents for your existing patio?
Yes, you do. You do need to have a tent permit for any type of outdoor space. It must be permitted, and you can do that. You can apply for that permit through TOPS.
Thank you for that. And let's go to the phone line. I think we have Raymond on the phone line.
Yes, this is Ramon from Barden, D.C.
Ramon, thank you.
My question.
We found you,
how's
Ramon.
it going, John?
We found you on the phone line.
My question. Yeah, it's great. My question is directed towards D.C. Health requirement in that slide about the 68-degree requirement for outdoor tents. That's gotten a lot of concerns from restaurants already who are wondering whether, right now during evenings, temperatures go lower and people are sitting outside. So we're curious about whether that has any chance of being revised, because people are, outdoors seems a lot different than indoors.
Thanks for the question, Ramon. So yes, the 68 degrees is actually, and I didn't say it in the presentation, but it's in the guide. It's actually from October 15th until May 15th. We're trying to ensure that that your customers are eating in a safe environment, and we don't want to cause any other issues that comes with the cold weather.
All right, thank you for the question, Ramon. Next up, gonna go back to the phone line as well, and it's Brittany in Ward 4 who had a question about the Resiliency Grant. Brittany, your line should be open now.
Yeah, hi. I have a question on behalf of my museum, which is a nonprofit museum that also has a store. would we still be ineligible as a nonprofit for that?
Is your store underneath the 501c3, I'm assuming, for your museum?
Yeah, it's a part of it. Mm-hmm.
So it would not be eligible for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your help.
You're welcome.
All right, so we have a couple more questions. These are, again, from our social media feeds, and the question is, we're a brick and mortar restaurant that's also a nonprofit. Are they eligible for the Resiliency Fund?
So I think the answer is the same. If you are under Section 501c for the nonprofits, you would not be eligible for this opportunity.
Okay, and another question from Solomon. Are flower shops eligible? I believe this is for the Resiliency Fund as well.
Absolutely.
Great. So we are screening a couple more questions, and I know we've had a lot. Director Cook, you had another observation to share?
I did. I'd like for Stephanie and Oswaldo to also reiterate the deadline so that everyone's clear. The time that they have, and then to also flag for everyone, if you have questions beyond this session, that there is an email address if you have questions, and I want to make sure that we flag that as well. So quickly, can Stephanie and Oswaldo, can you talk a little bit again about the process and the deadline, and
Sure.
what the turnaround time looks like as well?
Absolutely.
Upon review, when it closes, what the review process kind of looks like, if you guys can share a little bit.
Certainly, we'll tag team on this. So the deadline, the application's already open. The deadline is October 15th at 11:59 p.m. That is it. That's when the applications close. In terms of how we are processing the application timeline and how we are reviewing the applications, I'm going to ask our fund manager, CFE, to come in and speak on that.
Yeah, by the way, I just received an update from our office that 25 applications are being submitted as we speak.
Nice.
And one has been completed already. So I would encourage all the potential applicants to apply early. And if they have any questions, they better have them now. We will be as expedient as possible answering your questions and addressing your concerns. The application, the bulk of the applications will be not evaluated until October 15th, midnight, when the application closes. That is important to know. It doesn't mean that you should wait until the last minute, but it means that no matter when you apply, after you apply successfully, we will consider the applications equally, whether you apply today at 5 p.m. or at 11 p.m. on October 15th. I insist it is important that you apply now as soon as possible, so it will enable us to review the your application thoroughly from day one. I would also reemphasize the importance that you review, make a list of the documentation that is needed for the application. The interface, it's very friendly, it's user, the interface is pretty simple. We made an effort to keep it as simplistic as possible. You shouldn't encounter any IT or any other challenges. But if you did, we would be more than happy to help you in the process.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Oswaldo. Again, as you might be able to see on the screen, I'm not sure if you all are seeing this, but if you have any questions, obviously you can, as Oswaldo mentioned earlier, email DC Resiliency Fund at cfeenterprises.org or dcbizgrant@dc.gov, whatever your pleasure. But we want to make sure that if you have questions beyond this moment in time while we're discussing it, feel free to shoot us communication through that. I do want to also flag again what Oswaldo mentioned. He did say it doesn't matter. We're encouraging you to apply early and apply as soon as you can. But again, we are reviewing applications whether you apply today or on the last day when you completed your application. They will will all be seen. So we are still encouraging you still to apply as quickly as you can. As he mentioned, 25 applications have already been submitted, so that's exciting to hear just in the last hour. So that is fantastic. That's exactly what we want to see. But whether you send it in today or the last day, we're still excited to receive your applications.
Let's go back to the phone lines, and Dwayne had a question. He's a small business owner in Ward 5. Dwayne, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Great. And Dwayne, what's your question?
Yes, my question is, I have a green cleaning business. Back in March, we were able to become very resilient and pivot and start cleaning the COVID virus. And so we've been pretty resilient in cleaning it. We've also have been cleaning salons for those small business owners who have salons in Ward 5. So I want to know that for the resiliency grant, can it be applied to my business?
It sounds as if you've made quite a bit of a pivot, so it's there to provide pivot support. I would encourage you to apply, as long as you're eligible.
Okay, can you give me that email address again, too?
So the email address for application questions is dcresiliencyfund@cfeenterprises.org. You can also find additional information, as well as this information, on our coronavirus.dc.gov website.
All right. And
okay,
then,
thank you so much.
Thanks,
You're
Dwayne.
welcome.
Our next caller is from Ward 2, Georgia. Georgia had a question, I think about, she might have two questions. Georgia, or we lost Georgia. Sorry about that. Next up is Aaron from Ward 2. Is Aaron still with us? Aaron, your line should be open.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. What's your question, Aaron?
We are a small private dental office with about 11 employees right here in Ward 2. Are we eligible for this type of grant?
So it sounds like your professional services, which would not ideally make you eligible based on what you've shared. I'd encourage you to send us an email just so that we are clear on what the uses of the funds would have been for the dental office.
All right. And then
mostly for it.
All right. Let's go to Kim in Ward 2. Kim had a question about application. Kim, are you with us? Can you hear us?
I am with you, yes.
Fantastic. What's your question?
How are you?
I'm good. What's your question?
My question is, I just wanted to ask, first of all, I want to make sure that I'm hearing this right on the email address that I'm sending to. Is that C as in cat, S as in Sam, E as in Edward, enterprise as with an S on the end, .org?
So why don't we do this for our listeners who are on the phone? Probably the easier email address to give you is the other email address, which is dcbizgrant@dc.gov. So again, dcbizgrant@dc.gov. And we'll make sure that we post that on social media too, so that we can get that out to you. And we'll give you the other one on social media. So if you look at the DMPED DC on handle on Twitter, we'll make sure that we share the full DC Resiliency Fund at cfenterprises.org. So sorry for the confusion on that. Did you have another question, Kim?
I did, but she answered it for me, earlier, but maybe other people would like to know this, which is where was the specifics of the site that you go to pull the application up?
Sure. So that is coronavirus.
And she did answer it for me.
Yes. So coronavirus.dc.gov, and it has the application link as well as the application FAQs to help guide you.
You can find that under recovery.
Yes.
Great. And then
Okay.
Thank you for that question or those questions, Kim. Why don't we go to Matt? Matt is actually calling in from WAMU. Matt, your line's open.
Hey, thank you very much. So if all if all businesses are going to get $10,000, and there's $3 million in the Resiliency Fund, for the Small Business Resiliency Fund, the math works out that about 300 businesses would be able to get grants. Is there going to be potentially more money available down the line? And how many businesses do you all expect to apply? Is it over the 300 that potentially would be available for this grant?
So this is actually a competitive grant application, and we are limited to the funds that we have made available, which is a combination of both local and federal funds that we've cobbled together to create this $3 million fund. And our biggest hope is that we'll be able to administer this one, and we're constantly looking for more funds to do either this to invest in this program or other programs. But at this point, it's a $3 million fund that's, like I said, combines both local and federal dollars. Savangloy, did I miss anything on that?
No, I don't think you missed anything at all. And obviously, this is not the last fund that we'll be administering, and so we're constantly continuing to think about other ways that we can continue to support the small business local system here that we have.
Great, and have a number of questions from Facebook. This is from Laura, who asked about the 50 or fewer employee requirement. Is that pre-COVID or currently?
This is currently.
Okay. And then Jennifer, who asked, can the resiliency funds be used for reimbursement of expenses?
We have not identified that as an eligible use of funds.
All right. And Director Townsend, we want to bring you back in. Daniel had a question. He said that he opened my eatery. Actually, I'm sorry. This might be for the Resiliency Fund. But he opened his eatery in December of 2019. So it's been open for 3 months, or it was open 3 months. Do I have to report income for Q1 through Q3 of 2019? Does that keep me from getting the resiliency? So it seems like he opened, in December of 2019.
Yeah, so no, it does not preclude you from applying. What we have required is that you were at least revenue generating at 3 months prior to the declaration of the emergency.
Okay. And then Jennifer asked if that City First Enterprises and DMPED, if there are other questions, or will there be an FAQ posted so that folks can look through those FAQ?
Absolutely. It's posted on the coronavirus.dc.gov /recovery page. So you'll find FAQs, any of the questions that you have. And as we see questions coming through the email, if we see a trend in some of those inquiries, obviously we'll begin to post those as well in real time.
And then can you give an update on your deadline and when you expect folks to hear back? That was another question we got from Facebook.
Yep.
Absolutely. So we anticipate announcing awards at the end of October. So the last week of October, somewhere between October 27th and October 30th.
And we have a question, too, about the streetery. Sean, can you just go through again, Director Townsend, kind of when folks will hear back about the streetery Winter Ready grant program?
Thank you. So we have begun to issue conditional award letters. About half of the 600 applications that we've received have received a conditional award letter at this time. And once you receive the conditional award letter, you will be asked to submit a budget of what you will be spending the funding on. Once that happens, you'll then be sent the grant agreement where you'll execute it, and funds will be dispersed accordingly after that.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Sean. Sean, I think we're coming to the end of our questions on the phone line and on social media. We'll, of course, list all this information on coronavirus.dc.gov /recovery-business. Or you can just go to the recovery section and look for the business section. So, Director Townsend, maybe for you and for your panelists, are there any final thoughts that you want to leave with the listeners?
That is I just want to remind people that there's still an opportunity to apply for the grant, and also take a look at our comprehensive guide that we've put together. And this is a document that involves a lot of agencies that spent some time to put this stuff together. I'd like to thank them for their involvement. We know that I'm already getting text messages and comments, emails sent to me about the 68-degree temperature requirement. I've already contacted DC Health while on this call, and that's something that we will discuss internally and try to come up with a viable solution that works for everyone.
Fantastic. Director Townsend, so I've been going through a lot of text messages that I've been getting. Do you want to read off each of those text messages?
No, thank you. Feel free to email john@dc.gov with those other questions unrelated to nightlife.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Director. Just for any of the panelists in the room, were there any final thoughts? Pamela, anything?
The one thing I would say wasn't mentioned, for the heaters, you can't use a kerosene heater. So don't think that you could go buy a kerosene heater and put it either outside the tent or inside the tent. We won't approve. That application would not be approved.
And so in layman's terms, so folks should look for
Propane or an electrical that you can plug directly into an outlet.
Okay, absolutely. Okay. And then, Osvaldo, anything?
Yeah, I would just encourage and advise one more time to read the guide. It's a very easy to read document, 16 pages. We put a lot of thought on that, but I'm sure we missed something. So please read it very thoroughly, and if after you read it you have any questions, do reach out to us. The email address is also at the very end on page 16 of the document.
Okay. Arian, any final thoughts?
Yes, just if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at coronavirus@dc.gov or food.safety@dc.gov.
Fantastic. And so Director Townsend, I'm going to take that as for all the folks who are virtual. You've given a thumbs up that they don't have any parting thoughts. So I'll go to Stephanie and Sabangle for their parting thoughts.
I think, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Again, always an honor and a pleasure to be here to serve. And we do just want to remind folks that this information is on the coronavirus.dc.gov/recovery page. You'll find the document that Osvaldo is discussing and FAQs there. We are ready to receive any questions that you might have via email as well. So please, by all means, reach out to us. We are excited to assist you in any way we can. So thank you so much for your time. Stephanie, would you like to share anything?
Yeah, in closing, I just want to encourage everyone to apply, and please be encouraged that we are continuing to think of economic interventions and programs to help support our small business community. If this opportunity isn't a fit, please know we are considering ways on how we support all our small businesses here in the District of Columbia.
Great. And I just want to thank all of our panelists and all of our callers and folks who wrote in on social media in order to engage with us on this weekly check-in. This is obviously the most number of panelists we had, with 11 different panelists joining us. I want to thank Jackie, Tatiana, and Zoel for all the work that they do behind the scenes in order to make this happen. And then, of course, what we'll do is we'll continue to look for ways. One of the things we do is a lot of times we focus in on the grant opportunities, which we definitely want to highlight. We definitely want to answer the questions. But what we've seen throughout the pandemic is a spirit of cooperation that we worked with all of our sister agencies in order to make sure that we're making the rules as clear as possible. We're waiving fees where we can. We're waiving rental fees as well in terms of for public space in some ways. And so what we want to do is we want to continue that spirit of cooperation as we get into the winter months. We know how hard it is for you to make that pivot or a number of pivots throughout the year. And so we want to be as clear and concise as we can and as helpful as we can. And where possible, we want to make sure that we put our dollars out there in grants in order to help you and your business. We've talked about a lot of resources today, so be sure to check out coronavirus.dc.gov/recovery, and that's where you'll see all of the information that we shared with you today. Thank you, and be safe.